It was December 31st, and Lorna was buzzing with excitement. She had spent hours selecting the perfect outfit for her first date with David, a charming man she had met on a dating app. Their conversations had been delightful, full of wit and humor, and she couldn't wait to meet him in person. They had agreed to ring in the new year together at a lively city square, famous for its fireworks display. David arrived promptly at 8 p.m. to pick her up. He was dressed sharply, his navy blazer and crisp white shirt making a good impression. As he greeted her, his face lit up with a smile that instantly set her at ease. "You look amazing, Lorna," he said, his voice warm. The night started smoothly. They drove to a cozy Italian restaurant for dinner. Over plates of steaming pasta and glasses of red wine, their conversation flowed effortlessly. David seemed sweet, attentive, and full of charm. Lorna found herself laughing at his anecdotes, thinking she might have stumbled upon someone truly special. But the first hint of trouble surfaced as they stepped out of the restaurant. The streets were bustling with revelers, and the occasional pop of a firework echoed through the chilly night air. David flinched visibly at the sound, his smile faltering. "Are you okay?" Lorna asked, noticing his sudden stiffness. "Yeah, just. Not a fan of fireworks," he muttered, brushing it off. They headed toward the city square, where a massive crowd had gathered. The festive energy was palpable, with street performers, food stalls, and music adding to the lively atmosphere. As they strolled through the crowd, Lorna reached for David's hand, but his palm was clammy and cold. She glanced at him and noticed he was scanning the darkened alleys and rooftops nervously, his shoulders tense. "Are you sure you're okay?" she asked again, her concern growing. "Of course," he said, forcing a laugh that didn't reach his eyes. "Just a lot of people, you know?" As midnight approached, the crowd surged, and the fireworks display began in earnest. The first loud boom shattered the night, sending colorful bursts of light into the sky. But instead of admiring the spectacle, David let out a yelp and ducked behind a food cart, pulling Lorna with him. "What are you doing?" she exclaimed, startled. I don't like fireworks," he stammered, his face pale. Lorna stared at him, confused. "It's just fireworks, David. They're not going to hurt you." But David was visibly trembling, his eyes darting around as if expecting something to attack him. Another firework exploded overhead, and he covered his ears, crouching lower. By now, people around them were starting to notice. A few chuckles rippled through the crowd as they watched the grown man cower in terror. Lorna felt a mix of embarrassment and sympathy. "Let's go somewhere quieter," she said, helping him to his feet. They ducked into a nearby alley, away from the main square. It was quieter, but dark and shadowy. David hesitated at the entrance, his fear of the dark battling with his need to escape the fireworks. "Come on," Lorna urged, tugging his arm. I'm not good with dark places either," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. Lorna blinked at him in disbelief. "You're afraid of the dark too?" David nodded, looking sheepish. "I know it sounds ridiculous, but..." "Yeah." At this point, Lorna was torn between frustration and pity. She had envisioned a magical New Year's Eve filled with laughter and romance, not hiding in alleys with a man afraid of both the dark and fireworks. As the night dragged on, it became clear that David's fears were overwhelming him. Every shadow seemed to make him jump, and each distant firework crack sent him into a fresh panic. Lorna tried her best to reassure him, but her patience was wearing thin. Finally, just before midnight, they found a quiet cafe still open, and Lorna decided they'd watch the fireworks from inside. The staff gave them odd looks as David refused to sit near the windows, insisting they stay at a table in the back corner. When the clock struck 12 and the cafe erupted in cheers, David barely managed a weak smile. Lorna watched him, her earlier excitement now completely deflated. As they parted ways later that night, David apologized profusely. "I'm sorry for ruining the evening," he said, looking genuinely regretful. Lorna forced a smile. "It's okay, David. Everyone has their fears." But as she walked back to her apartment, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was not the New Year's Eve she had imagined. David might have been sweet, but his fears had turned what could have been a magical night into a disaster. By the time she got home, Lorna had made up her mind. Maybe David wasn't the right match for her after all. Sometimes, she thought, compatibility wasn't just about shared interests, but also about how you faced life's challenges together. And tonight had been a glaring mismatch. As she slipped out of her heels and poured herself a glass of wine, Lorna made a New Year's resolution, to find someone whose courage matched her own, even on a chaotic New Year's Eve.